Welcome back, everyone. Those of you who've been with us these last three parts, we are now in part four. And Brian, welcome back. Brian is a co-founder of Fifth Talent, and he is been taking us along this journey. How are you, man?
Yeah, good. Well, and I'll introduce you, Amas Tanuma. You do all of these things in the industry, writing books, doing podcasts, consulting. So you are a great audience to represent contact center leaders. So thank you for you hanging in there for the first three workshops. And now we went through a lot of bad news things.
Yes.
First workshop was the problem.
Yep.
And the problem is there's a crisis in contact center management. Things continue to get worse for customers and for the agents. Then in the second one was the opportunity. And the opportunity is actually the agent and the customer do want to get along. And that agent really wants to help the customer. And when they can get on this human-human connection, it's this emotional response by both. It increases both of their loyalty. So that's the good news. Last workshop was the challenge, and that was the introduction of grind. And unfortunately, a lot of this is through executive leadership, and we want to just cost cut and everything, and there's no value in customer service. So let's just automate it, cut the costs, and unfortunately, that's causing a lot of grind. Where then the agent doesn't like their job, the customer doesn't like the service, and quite honestly, the contact center leader and the grind that they get from their executives, they're not that excited either. It's true. But today we have a solution.
I can't wait. I want to commend you. You've introduced some concepts into this. And I think what you did in the first part of this series is make the point that both customers, contact center agents, contact center supervisors are generally all aligned in what they're trying to do. So there's not this big gulf. There's this thin sort of in the way, which we got to, which is this concept of grind created by the companies themselves, right? The executives of the companies created this thin. And you assured us that there is a way out. And I'm sure those of you who followed us through to this part, let's dive right in. What is the solution?
A customer evolution is not really needed. This is actually a revolution.
Oh boy.
And the reason why it's a revolution is because of this thing called grind. And so ultimately, the solutions that we offer, and the main thing is this meaningful work program, which we'll dive into, which has analysis, leadership development, management development, down to a course for the actual agents, because it gets kind of everybody on the same page. And it's really to do one major thing: shift the mindset from, hey, we provide a service as an organization, to know as an organization, we serve a person. So each person we come in contact with, whether it's internal or then down to the customer, if you can have that kind of mindset, you'll get this big advantage. This idea is what we call a customer serving revolution. It's not service. Service is a thing. Serving is actually something active that involves people. We have this idea of, when it's a service, what's the process? What are we doing? How do we do it? And then we're going to push it out there. We're going to train people to do it. We're going to then monitor them and measure everything they do. And then we take a look at, how is this person doing in this interaction? And it's this checklist mentality. Did they follow the process? And, one of the big giveaways is when you hear, just follow the process and everything's going to be fine. It is driven by measurements at the end of this service. They're not bad things,
right?
But when that's what the focus is, you are causing grind.
So I'm tracking. I think what you're saying is, in part, process, the metrics has become the whole point of what we're doing, as opposed to the humans. And that resonates. And those who are listening to this think, I'm sure most of you run or in around contact centers understand this all too well. When I ask any contact center leader how things are going, the very first thing and probably only thing they say, it's all on the left. Like,
Yep.
It's all up. Oh, service level is 67%, or this was that. And it is so ingrained in us. And all you're saying, you radical you, is how about we focus on the humans?
Correct. Because when it's serving and you focus on the people, I want to take care of them, make sure that they understand. And really, it's the development one-on-one of their team members. An agent wants to naturally just do a good job. And when they can't, it's really difficult and they disengage and or quit. The focus is helping them, because one crazy thing is, one time at a different company, we took away QA, said, let's just take it away. There's no need for it. The agents wanted it back because they're like, we need this to get better. We want time with our managers so that they can help us be better, because I want to be successful with customers. And then when they're successful with customers, they feel meaningful work. It is this value chain, which is great. You don't have to change what's on the left. You just have to make sure you start with the right. Then you start getting all of these results. When you start causing grind and it's only about the process, and the only time anybody talks to me is when I get a detractor or something like that, it starts to ruin attrition, to lower engagement and performance. So if you start with the people, you're going to get these amazing results. And what we found through our research in our program, it's that big lever that is meaningful work in their job. It's not their pay. It's not the company they work for, the people they work with. It's the job. You move that a little bit, and what we've been finding is we can reduce monthly attrition 25 to 50%, and CSAT a 10 to 25% increase.
You did promise there was good news, and this is really good. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're almost saying what we do today is against the grain. It's unnatural. It's not what anyone wants to do.
Correct. It's not a human system.
Yeah, like it's this synthetic thing we manufactured. And I think the proof that why it's connecting with me right this second is also because contact center is such a different place than the rest of the organization. If you just take the contact center culture and practices and applied it to anywhere else in the organization,
yeah,
anywhere. Marketing wouldn't put up with this. Sales wouldn't put up with this. Like anywhere else in the organization. So it's clearly not even the ways of working, even in corporate America. It's not even how any of this is. And what I love about this, guys, this is really, really good news. I want you to go more into details on how we actually do this, is that your movement is about, let's get back to the way people naturally want to work and interact.
Correct. What we've done is create what we call this fifth talent meaningful work methodology. How can you be successful at navigating the different things? And one is understanding where you're at. I'll show you here in a second. We have a survey, and we can measure the levels of grind and meaningful work, and also things like intent to quit and intent to engage. And then experiment, because it is so hard to change an organization and change the minds of especially executives. We just need to cut costs and different things like that. And customer service might not be that important. So taking on those battles head on doesn't work. Also taking on your own team, they don't want to change. They're burned out. And then you take on the larger cross-functional teams with like IT, marketing, and training and things like that. Very hard for them to change. Once you experiment and you're successful, then people are attracted to success, and you'll get executive sponsors because they want the results you get. And yep, we cut costs because we cut turnover and we increased sales and we really increased performance. So it's great. And they're like, great, if you found a better way to do that, let's do more of it. And they're not against the people side. It's just they know that they need to deliver those results first. And if it's good for the people, oh my gosh, then it's like even better. That's like that cherry on top. And they can start feeling good about what they're doing, and they might even experience some meaningful work. So one of the biggest opportunities that impacts agent behavior and customer behavior is how the supervisor manages the agent. So if that is your focal point, and that's why we call what we do is a management development program. That's the easiest context for people to understand, because if you can take care of that piece, big rewards. And as you go through it and have this experiment, you get the information you need, then you can start to expand it, but then you also understand it better because you've done it. And then many people ask, well, does this work outside of the contact center? And it's like, well, absolutely it does. There's no doubt. This is universal. This should revolutionize, quite honestly, how we manage people. But the great place to start is a contact center for what you just said earlier, because it's different. It's higher stress. It's also one of the most measured things. It's the place where you get the biggest ROI because you are dealing with customers and they're the ones who impact your profitability the most. So great place to start. And then you can slowly move. And we've done this with many organizations, outside of their contact center.
I was worried you were going to be a radical, but you're actually quite pragmatic, Brian. So this is...
I don't know if that's a compliment or not.
No, it is. Your point about don't push a rock up a hill to start.
Yeah.
But every executive, by the way, talk to a lot of them, as you know.
Yes, you do.
They all say the same thing to me when I bring up the topic of the deal. Our people are our greatest assets. Right? Like, oh my gosh, they use words like those heroes in the contact center. I think even deep down, there's a little bit of shame. Oh, I couldn't do that job. And so if you can show up with what Brian is saying and say, I have a plan that will not mess up your numbers for your shareholders, but you can now actually go back on stage and talk about these people you love so much. I am really loving this because the methodology, it's so practical and it's something that I feel like people can digest. So how does this thing get started?
In this process, data is important. Meaningful work has been around and a lot of people measure it in different ways. And so as we've done, and we've created kind of our approach of how do you measure meaningful work? And then we also came up with this concept of grind. Okay, how do we measure that? We've created a survey that only takes about 5 minutes, and it's designed for your agents and the supervisors. And when we first started doing this, we were shocked at the findings because what we're basically doing is also tying it to this thing called intent to quit. And there are some good metrics on how do you actually measure that. Doing this 2-factor analysis of grind and meaningful work and how do they influence intent to quit. We found a correlation of typically 0.52 or higher. We've seen it as high as 0.65, which means 52 to 60% of what is influencing somebody's intent to quit are these 2 factors of grind and meaningful work. Meaning, grind and meaningful work are more important to intent to quit than everything else combined. Your pay, your career path, pizza parties, all of these other things. Let's start by showing people their own organization. Because you're going to argue, we do all of these things for employees. It's all good. So we don't need to solve anything there.
Right.
And it's like, boy, once you see it, people say, wow, I now get it. If I can reduce grind and increase the level of meaningful work, I'm going to have these leading indicators of attrition and performance solved. And that's the intent to quit and also intent to engage. There is the inverse correlation of intent to quit. So if you intend to quit, you do not intend to engage. You do not intend to engage with customers. If you're a supervisor, you don't intend to engage with your own team. So if you can manage these two factors, you're going to have big results. And so that's where we give this readout and this dashboard for where you are based upon the level of meaningful work and grind. It's a net worthwhile score. And we also show you where your employee's at in their different states of mind. Are they frustrated? Are they disillusioned? Or are they energized? And that's ultimately what you want. Because when they're energized, and that's when grind is lower and meaningful work is high, people are energized. They come to work energized. They love the job. It is beyond the money, is beyond, people I work with, and it's a great company to work for. They do it for the job.
I love that you can quantify it. The only thing I would just add is I worked with a client last year. They're on the best places to work things.
Oh, yeah.
Their
Boy, you're going to get me in trouble, ain't you?
Their pay for the contact center is not in the 99th percentile. It's off the charts. They're scratching their heads as to why they have these outcomes in terms of attrition in the contact center. I mean, to the point.
Yep.
To the point that the entire rest of the company does not have this problem. So what happened is the contact center employees are so big, a sizable portion of the employee size of the company, that the CEO would tease the executive who owns the contact center. That's why she was talking to me. That if we just carve the contact center off of the company, results, that life would be good. Things you have on here I've never seen before in any other kind of things you're doing internally. So I would almost advise people, consumers, if you're on a contact center, like, don't come in like, we're already on best places to work. Put that aside. What I think Brian and team are measuring here, something very, very, very different. It's unique to get into the heart, because you can trick yourself into all kinds of vanity metrics that will give you sort of false impressions. Okay, I now fully understand what my issues are. And now that I have the data, maybe now I can now think about how do I attack this for the better?
Yeah. And a lot of people ask us, well, we already do an employee engagement survey. And it's like, well, great. And keep doing it. You get a lot of good information. What we're showing is what primarily drives engagement. And it is these two factors of grind and meaningful work. We found the biggest opportunity. And it's not, as you said earlier, it's not the agent. The biggest opportunity is how you manage that agent.
Agent is not the problem. You're unlocking ways to identify where the opportunities are. And now it's like, how do we get this? I'm looking at the bottom of your chart here, and I put the CSAT even aside. That's also great. But look, everyone who's listening to this call will kill for 25% reduction in or improvement in retention, because that one is just a killer.
Yeah, because that has not only a cost, it's very hard to run an organization where you're constantly trying to catch up. In a sense, you're constantly trying to ramp. This is not just a BPO or an outsourcer problem. This is actually internal centers have a hard time retaining 50% of the people that they bring into the organization in the first 90 days. When you do this program, you don't have to change the technology, the processes, or the metrics. What we're doing is changing the mindset, and it's the actual organization When they change their mindset and the leaders, especially the supervisors, start to understand a different way to look at this and understanding what truly motivates their agents, and they start to shift, that's where the results come. For example, we did this with a client who had 5 outsourcers. And what we did is we worked with them and implemented the program, and it was done through Train the Trainer, because that's the most effective way to do this, not only from a financial standpoint, but also it's great when the organizations embrace this themselves. And these were the results across the 5 outsourcers, and nothing was changed on the processes, the technology. Now they started to create other ideas of what they could change in the future and how they could make things better. That's great, because then you start to see people are adopting it, and how do they reduce the grind? And that's typically the biggest opportunity, because naturally people want meaningful work. It's the grind that's preventing them, and that's usually done by management. So to simply go through the meaningful work program that we have set up, you do the survey, and we recommend to do this once again as a pilot or a proof of concept and experiment. You do a workshop with senior leadership, because they have to say, we understand and we're going to communicate that we're on board with this. We are going to make some changes and we support this. And then the big thing is this 8-hour Developing Others course, which really goes through all of these aspects of grind and meaningful work, along with these 5 talents. You are going to be great as a manager, but also help your agents develop these 5 talents, because then they're going to be great at serving customers. Also, using these 5 talents, you're going to start to find more and more meaningful work, because you're really making this human connection. Then we go down to the agent, and that's the serving others. It's this idea of getting back into this joy of serving, making this human-to-human connection, and to get around the stinted customer-agent relationship. And once again, they become more successful, and this becomes a self-fulfilling approach where everybody kind of likes this, and we're getting better results. And that's why we've seen great progress by really not doing major lifting and major changes.
This is remarkable, and I especially love how you keep the status quo in terms of your metrics. Yeah. That's not going anywhere. Let's get real. But then you have this really very well thought out program for each of the constituents here that we've been talking about, these 4 sessions: your senior leadership, the managers, supervisors, etc., and the frontline employees. I think this is well thought out. And when you also mentioned you've done this with outsourcers, my gosh, that is you started with the hard ones.
Yes. And you get typically bigger ROI when you have some more challenges. And grind is almost always higher for outsourcers.
Yes.
Because you have the outsourcer causing grind, but also client causing grind. And through the process, they start to discover, oh, maybe we shouldn't do some of the things we're asking.
Love it.
The Great Contact Center Challenge. Can you create a contact center organization where people love their job, including the contact center leader? And they deserve that. And they have the hardest job in all of this. Just take the challenge, do a pilot, because it's so hard to create change across an entire company, right? Going to the executives and getting approval, going to the different cross-functional teams, going to your own team. It never gets off the launching pad. If you get a pilot and say 25 to 100 agents, just let them do this experiment. We can all watch it. It's okay to watch. Let's just not get in and try and do a bunch of things like, oh, you can't change that, you can't do that. No, give them some freedom. You let them go through the approach. You're going to get a lot of the data that you need to say, well, this is then a better way. But what's even more important out of the pilot is, now I get it. Now I see it. And it's hard to bring somebody to this aha moment without them experiencing it. So that is why that pilot is so important. What's great is you do the survey and then you have the data to go into implementing the program. Pilot takes 1 week. 1 week to implement, and you're on your way.
1 week.
1 week, because it's 25 to 100 agents, and you can train that many people in 1 week, along with doing the visioning session for the senior leaders of that group and their management.
This has been worth it. I hope all of you who've been along has been worth it. I can imagine the audience listening to this and going, where the heck do I sign up? Because what I love about what you're saying is I thought we were headed towards starting a petition to fire all the executives. That's where I thought this was going.
No, this is a really change. The executives have hearts too. They want meaningful work too.
They do. They do. And on a very serious note, you've probably heard your senior executives wax poetic about your contact center reps, about employees, about the employee experience. And I think it's in part because inwardly, we all get and understand that if you get this, there's a lot of gold in that mind. The challenge has just been that it is so far been elusive, because every other plan that someone shows up in front of that executive to fix this problem, those plans go something like this. How about we are less profitable next year? That's all they hear, because you show up and you go, let's buy new monitors, let's do all of this stuff. Let's be less profitable next year. Let's give them extra breaks. Let's do more this. All I'm hearing is you're going to make less money last year. And they kill it. I'm not overselling this and saying, as one who's been in this space for decades, I think for the first time, I have now seen a program that has the potential to really get at this problem we've all been trying to solve. And by the way, the executives want to solve this problem too, if for no other reason than the agent turnover would be a nice little blip in the numbers that would give them a higher bonus, the increase in CSAT. And oh, by the way, they also like to tell the whole world how happy their employees are. It is important to them. So I think this is a program that has some legs. How do I get started? How do I do this?
Yes, obviously you can go to Fifth Talent, and we have our contact information there. We also have the great contact center challenge.com, where we have these workshops, and you can right there sign up for a consultation, and hopefully it'll be with me. It's what I love to do. It's meaningful work for me. You're ready to look into this and do the Great Contact Center Challenge. We are definitely here to help.
Well, I can testify to that. Brian and team and the folks at Fifth Talent are doing something really, 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 really unique here. And the commitment in terms of time and resources is very, very small to start and allows you to test this thing. I think go take the challenge if you are serious about really, really solving this contact center problem and making it more human focused. I really encourage you guys to reach out to the folks at Fifth Talent.
Well, thank you, Amos, for willing to go on this journey with me and represent all of the contact center leaders out there, their concerns, questions, challenges. I sense the same thing in you as in me. Yeah, there's a better way for everyone, and we're here to help.